Before Spain, there was a land untamed, a land of warriors, traders, and mystics, a land we now call the Iberian Peninsula. But who were the first to call it home? This is the story of the Iberians, one of the most enigmatic civilizations of the ancient world and the precursor to the Spanish kingdom. In this episode, we'll learn about the civilization that preceded what would eventually become the Spanish kingdom. Learn about the Iberians and the events that led to the Roman conquest. To understand the Iberians, we must journey deep into prehistory. For thousands of years, hunter-gatherers roamed these lands, leaving behind faint echoes of their existence, paintings in caves, tools of stone, and the bones of their ancestors. But it was the arrival of farming communities from the Near East, nearly 7,000 years ago, that set the stage for the Iberian civilization to emerge. Over centuries, waves of migration shaped Iberia. Therefore, some believe early influences came from North Africa, while others from the Eastern Mediterranean. Yet, despite their differences, these early inhabitants formed a distinct identity, one that thrived in fortified cities, mastered metallurgy, and left behind a language still shrouded in mystery. By the first millennium BCE, the Iberians had evolved into a network of independent tribes, each controlling their own territory, yet bound by shared traditions. Unlike the vast empires of the East, Iberia was a land of city-states, where governance was local, power was decentralized, and loyalty was earned through strength. Their language was unique, not quite Indo-European, not quite Phoenician, but something different. Their writing, still only partially deciphered, offers glimpses into their world, a world of warriors and merchants, of kings and deities, of battles and rituals. But who exactly were the Iberians? The answer is not so simple. Iberia was not a single people, but a mosaic of cultures. The Iberians of the East and South, like the Turdetani, Contestani, and Edetani, thrived along the Mediterranean, trading with Phoenicians and Greeks. Their cities, like Tartessos, were centers of wealth and learning. To the north and west, however, another group emerged, the Celtiberians. These were the fierce warriors of the highlands, a fusion of native Iberians and migrating Celts. Unlike their Mediterranean counterparts, the Celtiberians lived for battle, known for their unbreakable warrior code and brutal resistance against foreign invaders. Together, these groups shaped Iberia, distinct yet bound by shared heritage. But their greatest challenge was yet to come. Religion was woven into the very fabric of Iberian life. They worshipped gods of nature, spirits of rivers, mountains, and the earth itself. Some of their most enduring icons, like the Lady of Elche and Lady of Baza, depict noble women adorned in elaborate headdresses, priestesses, perhaps, or goddesses incarnate. Rituals were performed at natural sanctuaries, caves, springs, and hilltops. Sacrifices, both animal and human, were made to appease the gods. The dead were buried with their weapons, their jewelry, their secrets, awaiting an afterlife shrouded in mystery. The Iberians were not alone in their world. From the 9th century BCE, foreign powers arrived. First, the Phoenicians, bringing their vast knowledge of trade and writing. Then came the Greeks, who established colonies along the coast, influencing Iberian art, architecture, and even warfare. But with prosperity came conflict. In the 6th century BCE, the Carthaginians, rivals of Rome, sought control over Iberian lands. The Iberians, divided among themselves, became pawns in the struggle between Carthage and Rome. It was a conflict that would change their world forever. Then came the Romans. In 218 BCE, during the Second Punic War, Rome landed in Iberia, not as traders, but as conquerors. They clashed with the Carthaginians, turning Iberia into a battlefield. When Carthage fell, Rome remained, and Iberia's fate was sealed. For nearly 2 centuries, the Iberians resisted. Cities like Numantia refused to bow, choosing death over surrender. But one by one, Iberian strongholds fell. By 19 BCE, Rome had conquered the peninsula, and with it the Iberians faded into history, absorbed and assimilated. But Rome's triumph was never permanent. Empires, no matter how mighty, always fall. And in the West, Rome's grip was slipping. For centuries, Rome ruled Hispania, molding it into a province of wealth and power. Roads stretched from Cadiz to Tarragona, and great cities like Emerita Augusta flourished. But beyond the empire's borders, storms were brewing. A tide of invaders was coming, fierce, desperate, and hungry for Roman land. Among them, one name would carve itself into history: the Visigoths. The Visigoths, like many Germanic tribes, lived on the edges of Rome's world. For centuries, they were outsiders, sometimes allies, more often enemies. But when the Huns stormed across the steppes in the 4th century AD, the Visigoths were forced to flee. In 376 AD, their leader, Fritigern, pleaded for sanctuary inside Roman lands. Rome agreed, but at a price. The Visigoths were settled along the Danube River, but instead of safety they found treachery. Roman officials starved them, enslaved them, and treated them like barbarians. In 378 AD, the Visigoths rose in rebellion and met the Roman army at the Battle of Adrianople. There, they achieved the impossible. They annihilated the legions, even killing Emperor Valens. Rome had been invincible for centuries, but now it bled. For nearly 30 years, the Visigoths remained inside Rome's crumbling empire, moving through its provinces like ghosts of its impending doom. Then, in 410 AD, under the command of Alaric I, they did what no army had done in 800 years. They sacked Rome. For 3 days, the Visigoths plundered, burned, and took their revenge. Rome, the empire that once conquered the world, had been humbled by its own former allies. But the Visigoths weren't conquerors. They were searching for a home. After Alaric's death, his successors led the Visigoths deeper into Roman lands, eventually reaching Gaul, modern France. By 415 AD, they had struck a deal with a desperate Roman emperor. Rome was dying, its borders crumbling. Hispania, once the jewel of its empire, had been overrun by the Vandals, Alans, and Suebi, Germanic tribes that had crossed the Pyrenees and seized control. Rome needed a savior. In exchange for land in Aquitaine, the Visigoths agreed to help Rome reclaim Hispania. They became the empire's unlikely protectors. Under King Wallia, the Visigoths marched into Hispania with Roman blessing. One by one, they crushed the invaders. The Alans, once dominant, were wiped out. The Vandals were pushed south, eventually fleeing to North Africa. The Suebi held onto a small kingdom in the northwest, but they were no longer a serious threat. By 418 AD, Hispania was back in Roman hands, but Rome itself was slipping away. The Visigoths had come as warriors, but now they were rulers. They established their capital in Toulouse, France, controlling both southern Gaul and Hispania. Rome had given them land, but in reality, it was the Visigoths who were now in charge. By 476 AD, Rome's Western Empire collapsed completely. The last emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed, and with him the Roman rule over Iberia faded. The Visigoths, once rebels, once Rome's saviors, had become kings. Hispania was now theirs. But how long could they hold it? The Visigothic kingdom would rule for nearly 300 years, but their greatest challenge was yet to come. Because in the east, across the sea, a new power was rising. And soon, the Moors would come. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for more on Spanish history.